Hey there guys, this is Obsidian Chill. This is a continuation of the guide series. We're on to Atomic, and as usual in the pinned comment you're going to find annotation links to each different section of this guide. So if you're wanting just the DPS rotations or the tank spec, supercharges testing, or raid footage, you'll find all those links in the comment below. With Atomic's tanking and Atomic in general is not a power set that I've been often. It's just a personal preference of mine. It never really appealed to me because I'm not a fan of the combo powers, as well as a tanking power that kind of locks you into it. Like back in the day, Atomic heavily relied on its aura. So if your aura dropped for any reason, you were incredibly squishy. So basically, you're just having a combo the entire time and keep your combo up. And I wasn't a fan of a power set that locks me into a rotation. As a tank, I want to be able to react to the situation, and if I'm in the middle of a combo, I can't block break or I can't pull an ad off something. I can't cancel my combo quickly. It just wasn't something that appealed to me. After stats revamp, Atomic tanking, or Atomic in general, at least on the tanking side, was always geared towards being an ad management power set. When Black as Day came out, Atomic was great for that. There's tons of ads in that episode. More so, it was highlighted in Darkside War Factory. You always usually had an Atomic tank in that run. Atomic tank was perfect for the ads there because you got the damage absorption, a little bit of combo heals, as well as the constant juggle that the Atomic provided. So basically, the ads didn't have a chance to attack back. On Stats Revamp, they changed the CC control effects with Atomic tanking, so it became a little bit more vulnerable. There's not as much of an emphasis on the aura. Yes, of course, you want to keep your aura up, but it's not. You're not incredibly squishy without it nowadays, and that's more so with the shield meta. Atomic DPS didn't really have an AM. It was one of those powers, the same thing. You had to keep in the aura. So if your aura dropped, your AM dropped. Similar to like munitions back in the day, where if you got knocked out of your munitions chain, then your AM dropped, and then you'd have to get back into it. So same thing. It never really had a true AM. And Atomic DPS in general, it was very good with people that knew how to play it. So especially during like Amazon Fury Part 3 with Olympus, you had Atomics that could match the AM, like mental and ice and gadgets. You just had to know how to play it, and it relied all around crits. So most of this guide's influence comes from a player named Profusion. You can see him in my previous guides, even going back to like my munitions guide, which is like 8-9 months ago now. You can see him still trying to stick it out with Atomic and try to make it work. So it's Atomic has become viable. It's certainly towards the top tier in terms of damage. The tanking side, it has this give or take. It all depends on the type of content, whether or not you're always going to get CC'd out of a combo. But hope you guys enjoy. So on the Atomic DPS side, Atomic DPS really hasn't come that much of a long way since the stats revamp. If you weren't around the game back then, stats revamp. Previously to that, AMs for Atomic was basically you had two options. Either you just do the regular combos, basically the combo damage when you had the aura up was the AM damage, which was just like a steady increase in damage with the aura out as more you comboed. The other thing you could do is the 1, 2, 3, 4 boom, which is basically like 1, 2, 3, 4 Geiger Blast, and you just basically Geiger Blast would wipe your stacks, and then you'd restart and stack your stacks, nuclear stacks, pressure stacks. Nowadays, Atomic didn't really get much love in Stats Revamp, but it's pretty much stayed the same. They just took away obviously the AM damage and left it basically in the old combo system. Atomic is really close to being like tier 1. There's aspects of it that are tier 1 for damage, but then there's just some really easy points that just basically take that away. So basically we'll get into this gear first here. Same thing. Blast adapter is always going to be your weapon. Your head mod, this one is going to be slightly different because in the supercharge meta you think you'd run like a supercharged head, but we'll touch on atomic supercharges in a moment. You're always going to be running critical atom powered assault 3 because of the way atomic damage is structured. It's all burst, which I'll get into in a moment as well, but you're always going to want the head mod for the increased critical chance. Neck mod, escalating might. Berserker, because you're going to be just for the melee range, and there's no really accelerated mod that's going to matter. Chest mod, extended supercharge, because you're not running the head mod, so you're going to want to extend supercharge to get a little bit of regen. Leg mod, doesn't matter because there's nothing that's going to proc it. Trinkets, the same thing. Sunken for melee. Seahorse for single target. The DPS trinket, orbital spy drop, that's all the same. Max damage in the hands. Tumbling master in the feet. In terms of artifacts, pretty much the same thing as well. It's always going to be soul amplifier, soul cloak, and you're going to want the Gemini as well. The whole, like, I want to be a group player, yes, you could run the Tetra instead of the soul amplifier, so you still get the supercharged regen for your supercharges, and then you'd get, technically, you would have higher might, because you lose the buff from soul amplifier, but you gain that in the group buff for the Tetra. So once again, it's just how you want to play, but the most meta rotation for now is going to be these 3 artifacts, depending any new ones coming out for DPS. So in terms of like a skill point spec for might damage, play from the tray, it's going to be pretty much the same regardless. It's always going to be super powered spec. It's always going to be critical chance and critical attack damage maxed out. You max out your might and power, and then basically just dumping the rest into health. Iconic powers, robot sidekick. You don't even take Sonic Cry. I just had this because I was parsing with it, but you don't need to spec that. You don't use it. I just didn't change my spec from them. Heat vision, once again, you could save that to a single target armor if you want to save the skill point, because obviously I'm not using heat vision for this spec. But same thing, you would need Robot Psychic and Heat Vision for iconic powers for Atomic. Super speed wise, or any kind of movement mode, because you're going to be using the movement mode Supercharge. So Speed Drain, Gale, Vacuum Bubble, Front Flip for Acrobats. So essentially you're just taking it down. Take the resistance ones. Once again, if you don't have a high skill point, you don't have to take these. I just take these just to help. But nothing else you have to worry about. And in terms of weapon, it's just going to be just the one, just to take your weapon. Okay, so in terms of Atomic, you're going to have basically 3 loadouts. One's going to be single target, one's going to be range, and one's going to be melee. So we'll touch on the melee loadout here. So basically, the 2 main drawbacks that keep Atomic from being like a top tier power set, like clear cut, is one, the weak supercharges. Atomic Blast is a 0.5 second 5,000 supercharge. That's a conic damage. You have to watch your positioning on that, or you're going to miss targets. None of them impact by any PI at all. Not that Atomic really sets up a PI, but also with the 0.5 second cooldown, if you're hitting it too fast by mistake, you can also use it twice in a row and override Gemini. And then Radiation Burn as a 10,000 supercharge is very, very weak as a 10,000 supercharge. It's damage over time. It's not a burst. Atomic Blast is a burst. So basically, it's the same thing as I do with other power sets. If you want to take advantage of the Gemini meta, you're just using Speed Drain consistently to basically not only have the Speed Drain damage, which is okay. Like the Speed Drain damage itself is still around like between 100 and 150k itself, which is not terrible for a 25% supercharge. But basically, you're using that for the Gemini proc, which is the 20% damage from everyone around you. So the other drawback that Atomic has besides that is its limited dots. And what I mean by that, you've got Electron Flare and you've got Irradiate. Those are the only dots that Atomic has out of their entire power set. Everything else is basically just burst damage. So, and even then, Irradiate is single target. So you would have to, keep tabbing targets or switching targets if you want to have the dot set up on multiple targets, which is not realistic. And it's a 0.5 second cooldown, as you saw. So it's a 6 tick dot that has a 0.5 second cooldown. and it sets up days. So it overrides itself. So why would you want a 6-tick dot? You know, it just doesn't make sense from a power standpoint unless they're expecting you to, like I said, tab between targets. And electron flare, which is basically your melee dot. There absolutely is no range dot. Well, technically radiate, but like I said, that's single target. But there is no range AOE dot on atomic at all whatsoever. Even rage has some range issues, but at least it has a range dot. So electron flare, even itself. So if I use electron flare here, you're seeing ticks, 172 there, 154, 105, 126. Like, it just does not split well as a dot. It's not like this is a heavy hitting dot at all. It's still a 12-second cooldown. As you saw, basically it's the aura shortcut, but it basically doesn't set up a PI itself either. It benefits from days. Same thing as Geiger Blast. So it's just that why would you want a dot this weak? This is your main dot power set, and it's melee, so it's like not even mid range. It's like a dead melee dot. So that's not the best there. And the other thing as well, the only drawback to atomic as well is basically the combo powers itself benefit from being increased damage. So enemies take additional damage while the aura is active. That's great. But like powers like Geiger Blast, everything that depends on days, there's no power that you consistently set up days with that's going to be any good, decent damage. And as well as atomic also doesn't have a range supercharge generator. Unleash antimatter is about mid range. It's about 3 squares. Not that you need it anyway, but just mentioning it for the power set as well. So going into the melee loadout here, getting back to that point here. So like I said before, you use speed drain just because there's no viable alternative for atomic as a supercharge. You're using robot psychic because there's no viable alternative for a dot. Basically using robot psychic as damage over time. You could use electron flare, but like I said, it's just a weak dot overall. It splits terribly. So basically all you're doing is staying in your combos and then clipping with Atom Powered Assault just for that crit chance. So Atom Powered Assault is going to be your shortcut, and then basically you're going to your combos there. So with it, we can kind of give an example here. So obviously you want to maintain your aura, but the nice thing about it is clipping Geiger Blast before gives you enough of a window. So say... because electron flare doesn't clip, let's just show that example here. So if I was going to do a combo, did Geiger and then pop the aura, so you can see not enough time. So the electron flare is your aura shortcut, so you need the 3 stacks and then you can shortcut into the aura. So if you wanted to do you'd have to do it in a reverse order, which is basically just going to slow down your damage more. But if I'm having Atom Powered Assault in here, since it clips, if I go back and do the same thing, because the shortcut's going to work. So even though I have Geiger Blast before my shortcut, because I can clip it, the timing window still works. So you still get great burst, you get into your aura quicker, you refresh your aura, and you're getting the full damage from burst from Geiger. Clipping. And then since you can't set up days, but if another player in the group sets up days, and you be getting some extra damage as well from that. So essentially all the actual loadout and combo is basically you just doing the 3 tap melees of Atom Splitter, tap melees of Neutron Bomb. So basically once you're in your aura, those are going to be the increased damage, and then basically you're just using Geiger as a reset. So basically what it's going to look like here, so as an example, so the actual rotation itself is basically, we'll show it here. So Atom Splitter without basically the full combo, so that's 1, that's 2, and then that's 3. And the Neutron Bomb, that's 1, that's 2, and then basically that's 3. So essentially what the rotation is basically you're just clipping Geiger Blast at the end of each combo. So what I mean by that is the animation that on that 3rd Atom Splitter, so basically the hands raising in the air, that's what you're going to clip with Geiger each time. And the same thing with Neutron. So Neutron 1, 2, this is what you'd clip there. That basically the hands, that hand blaster forward animation. So essentially what it would be is you do 1, 2, and then with Geiger. So you saw that I got the double tick. So basically I'm getting the third atom splitter tick and the Geiger tick at the same time. And then basically, so with your actual rotation, basically if you see the animation from atom splitter, so if you see my hands raise, I did it too slow. So basically that's basically where the clip is. Same thing with neutron. Basically right there, basically you don't see that third tick. So you may see it for like a fraction of a second, and then you basically clip it with Geiger. Because if you do it any slower than that, like if I did like atom splitter like this, and then you saw my hands raised, like it still works, but it's just a slower of a clip. So that's the only thing you really have to get used to. Same thing with neutron. So if I do 2, and then my hands go forward a little bit, and then do it, you'll still see myself do that because I'm just not as practiced with atomic, because it's only been for you a couple weeks now. But that's what you want to strive for in the rotation, is basically just you want to hide that entire animation altogether of that third clip. Okay, so what I did there was basically I did 3 parsers, basically just until I ran out of power. So 3 parsers, then I waited. The only cut there in the video was basically just to wait till my soda was on cooldown, just so I wasn't sitting there the entire time, and that did another 3 waiting just for power to come back. So I did that because I wanted you to see how much power atomic actually uses, and a lot of that falls into the same kind of category as hard light, where the issue is that because the atomic combo still costs power and still costs the full power. So atom splitter is 200 power cost, neutron bomb is a 200 power cost, but since you're using it 3 times each, that's a 600 power cost combo. So 600 power cost, Geiger blast is 300, atom power assault's 300. So basically, since you're clipping that every 12 seconds, that's a 600 power cost clip, and you've got the reduced power regen from Robot Psychic already. So basically 600 power cost combo, 600 power cost, 600 power cost clip, that adds up a lot. It's not as bad as mental, but it's certainly up there in terms of power generation. And that could be fixed so simply. All that I have to do is either make it so that the combo powers don't cost power, which would help hardlight out a lot as well, or they just make it so that the combo versions of the powers cost much reduced power. So like the combo version, the second atom splitter would cost half as much power, and then so instead of a 200 power cost, it's a 100, and then the third atom splitter is a 50 power cost, which is half of the second one. So that they could do something like that, which is basically to relieve the power issues. But that's why. So it's not, since it's slower damage, since it's all burst, it is realistic that you can get yourself powered in content. It does need like a semi-decent troll. It doesn't need an amazing one or anything like that, but if you have some like crappy troll that doesn't know what he's doing or not giving supercharges or power, you might run into some issues there depending on your content. But yes, it's a heavy power rotation, but as you can see from the results, we're looking at 39, 42, 39, 41, 39, 35, which is when I was starting to run out a bit of power there. So very tier 1 in terms of damage. Those are the same kind of parsers you're going to get from Earth and Rage, a little bit lower, but it's still in that top tier in terms of damage potential. Okay, and for the range loadout, essentially it stays the same. The only thing is, obviously, since Atom Splitter is basically a mid-range power, it's about EMP's range. So you can't reliably use that at range. If you're going to be using a range rotation, you got to make sure it's max range. So neutron bomb is max range, and then basically you're just subbing a nuclear burst, in terms of Atom Splitter. So you're still doing 2 combos, just instead of Atom Splitter, which is at max range, using nuclear burst, and you're still clipping with Atom Powered Assault. You have freezing breath on there. You're not going to see me use it in the rotation, just because it's if your clips are correct and on time, you're going to be doing more damage by just cycling between these 2 combos with your clip with Atom Powered Assault. If your combo or if your clipping is a bit slow, or you're going to feel like it's a bit slower, then you do freezing breath and just cancel it after the first tick, like you saw myself do in other videos. So basically, just freezing breath, cancel off, and then go back into your combo. That's just weaker overall damage, just because you want to keep, once your aura is up, then you're maintaining damage with neutron bomb and nuclear burst with the increased damage with the aura being active. So essentially, freezing breath, if you're getting knocked out of your combos, if you're not in your aura yet, that's where you can kind of supplement some extra damage there as well. But it's just basically just adding in a range power, because there's really nothing else that Atomic has. In terms of Robot Sidekick, once again, that's just acting as a dot, because Atomic does not have a range dot. Then the supercharging, being at max range, speed drain is not going to do any damage. It's still going to do the Gemini circle, but you're not going to get any damage from it, so it's not as beneficial. If you're going to be max range, then yeah, you're stuck using Atomic Blast, or you're stuck using Radiation Burn, depending on what the rate is. But you got to use something that's going to get damage, where speed drain is not going to do the damage at max range. So same thing. So the rotation is still going to be the same thing. You're just alternating between the combos. So neutron bomb you've already seen. So that's 1, 2, and 3 with the hand forward animation, and then this is the nuclear burst. So basically 1, 2, and that's going to be a third combo that you're going to clip each time. Okay, guys, you get the sense there. With the range rotation, with the same thing with basically the melee rotation as well. If you get some nice crit parsers, you can get some really nice, well, not really crits. If you get crits on the right abilities, basically you're looking for crits on the third tick. So if you've got like a heavily crit rotation, 20%, then you still get 37. But if you get the crits on the right powers, which is basically the third hit of neutron bomb and nuclear burst, which are going to be your heavy hitters, even at 19%, you can still get good damage. So that's the advantage, I guess, with Atomic. When you have dots, basically your crit percentage can work on a dot, so a dot would crit, but your dot would normally hit for like 500, but it's going to crit for 800, not much damage. But when your entire power is burst, like Atomic is, any crit anywhere is going to be a good crit. So it doesn't matter if it's doesn't necessarily have to be a super high consistent critting rotation. Even if you get some crits now and then, it's still going to be helpful because it's just all burst. So if you have an ability, it's all hitting for 12k, 15k, and that's critting for 15, 30, 40k. But as you can see, it basically, it's still nice, 32, 33, up to 37k on the right crits. So basically with the rotation, it still comes down to really you're only using the 2 powers. I do have Freezing Breath on there. If your combos are a bit slower or you're getting interrupted, you can use Freezing Breath to kind of recover cooldown wise. It's the same, similar where I set up with Rage. Like I don't actually use it, but it's there in case I need it, because all the damage is going to come from the combo powers being in the aura. So it's just this much better having those 2 abilities. If you can keep the clips up consistently, then you're going to be maxing your range damage just by alternating those 2 powers with the aura up and then clipping in Atom Power Assault for the crits. So basically Freezing Breath is just there as a backup, but your max damage is going to come from rotating those 2 powers in combo, just getting the clips down right, just saving time, because that's all it is just making sure your clips are consistent. So each time you do it, nothing's even there. So you practice your clips, you get it right with Atomic, you can get that high burst damage because it's consistent damage, because you're always getting that 3rd tick off on the on either Neutron Bomb or Nuclear Burst. So for Atomic Single Target, this is where the power set starts to suffer slightly. It is not a tier 1 power set for single target. It does well in like multi-target single target. Let's say if it's a boss fight with a bunch of adds, it does well there, but Atomic just doesn't do well in pure single target compared to other power sets. So with the loadout itself, it still seems pretty similar. So Neutron Bomb, basically you're just clipping Neutron Bomb with Particle Beam. Well, not clipping it, but you're clipping the 3rd strike with Particle Beam each time. So just like you in the right melee combo you do with Geiger, now you're just using Particle Beam, which is the single target tank taunt, which is still can crit very nicely, just like Taser Pull, Zip Tie Attack, stuff like that. You're clipping with Atom Powered Assault to get the crits, and then just Heat Vision, and then Robot Sidekick. So very simple and straightforward. If you're going to be using multi-target, then you just sub in Nuclear Burst there. So you just take out Particle, and then it's the same thing. It's basically the same thing as the range rotation, just instead of Freezing Breath, you'd have Amplified Heat Vision in there, just for like fights like Throny or something, Throne Regular, where you got a boss in a bunch of adds. But the pure single target, it's going to be basically this loadout right here. And that's about what to expect from Atomic Single Target. This is where the power set kind of falls short in the grand scheme of things. Yeah, 17. That was the first one. Yeah, so basically, yeah, so you saw obviously great melee, top tier melee. The range is obviously very competitive too. Anywhere from 33 to 37k range is still very good for range power sets. Single target is where Atomic falls short. Really, it's more so that like technically where Atomic does do well is where it's single target and there's like a boss with a bunch of ads, like say like Crown Reg or Throne Reg, where you've got bosses and ads surrounding all around you. Then you can basically take out Particle Beam and put on Nuclear Burst. Where did that disappear to? And just use Heat Vision. So basically the same thing as my range rotation, just without Freezing Breath. It's Amplified Heat Vision. That's very good, but in pure single target, which is basically just like neutron and particle beam with heat vision. It's not that great. 17k without the aura, obviously a 10% crit, just terrible. And then basically once you get some decent crits, 21, 20, 18, the 13 was out of power. So it's just it's low 20s throughout all of Atomic, which is basically not terrible. It's not the worst single target in the game, but it's certainly bottom. It's top tier for melee, middle tier for range, and bottom tier for single target. It's just how it's going to be. Yes, you can get lucky. You can get some nice crits and get those like 22, 24k parsers because you want the first crit on the third crit on neutron and then the crit on particle beam. So it's possible that Atomic can do well. It's just that the baseline Atomic is going to be like the low 20s, 18 to 22 in that range, which is comparatively to other power sets not that great, but better than average. So with Atomic Supercharges, the main drawback or negative to the Atomic power set for DPS in general is its supercharges. The tank mass density is fine, but you've already seen that the melee rotations for Atomic are perfectly viable in top tier. The range rotation is really good. The single target is weak, but it's average, but it's pretty weak. But in terms of, as long as you can melee in range and not have to worry about too much about boss damage, Atomic is a top tier power set. Same thing, like Rage suffers from single target as well, so it was Earth. But Atomic is right there in terms of melee damage as in Earth and Rage. But Earth and Rage have amazing supercharges in Entomb and Berserk. What Atomic has is Atomic Blast and Radiation Burn, which are terrible. Atomic Blast is a conic damage. It's got a 0.5 second cooldown, so you could accidentally, if you're kind of hitting your button too quickly, you might actually use it twice in a row, which would then script your Gemini damage because you proc it twice. So it doesn't need to have that short of a cooldown. Radiation Burn, a 2-second cooldown on 10,000 supercharges makes sense regardless. But none of them work off any PIs at all. Oops, I just lost both. Radiation Burn it's pretty much straightforward. It's just a dot. Atomic Blast is basically a little bit of a burst, but it's very conic in damage. So it all depends on your positioning. So basically, I buffed up here. So I'm sitting at 42,309 might. So I'll show you what they do here. So Atomic Blast, it's a 5,000 supercharge. Just did 355k, which is comparatively really low, especially when you look at like Entomb or those other top tier supercharges for 5,000. That is incredibly low. Okay, with Speed Drain, as you just saw, 168k. Basically, 168k, that's even half of what Atomic Blast was, but Speed Drain, you're going to be able to use twice as often as Atomic Blast. And the other thing as well, you got to imagine this Speed Drain, you're not using it for the damage, you're using it for the Gemini. So basically, when you're going to be using that with the Gemini, I don't have it because I want to show the proc because that'll just be pointless showing the damage. But the main reason you're using it is for that Pollux Gaze. So basically, everyone standing in your Speed Drain that has a 1-second cooldown only costs 2,500 supercharge. You get 20% of the damage that's everyone around you. So that's how Atomic can make up for kind of start to make up for the damage from loss from a supercharge from like having an Entomb or Berserk is just by constantly using Speed Drain and getting the 20% damage from everyone else. That's how Atomic can basically use their supercharge, just because Atomic Blast is just not viable in terms of damage and positioning wise. You don't have to worry about positioning with Speed Drain. You just pop it. So as you saw, A 10,000 supercharge, 100%, 454. That, back to my rage footage, even Berserk was doing like 1.3 mil. And Tomb's doing way more than that. Even Mangle, which is a supercharge no one uses, and Mangle's only 50, Mangle was doing 700k. So for a 10,000 supercharge, Radiation Burn does way lower damage than what it should be doing. Big Gun be well above that. Oblivion is in like the 800k range, up to 1 million. It's just a Radiation Burn is really low for a 10,000. So it's realistically not, the only time I could see you using it would be, say, like you're starting off a fight, use Radiation Burn and then pop in Speed Drain, so then you can keep burning Speed Drains, and just Radiation Burn gives you some initial burst, some extra damage, but that's about it. So really, it comes down to Atomic not having this consistent supercharges, and you just want to use Speed Drain or Acrobatics Flip or Vacuum Bubble, like your movement mode supercharges, to take advantage of Gemini. Okay, so on to the Atomic tanking side. We'll zip right here first. So with Atomic, it revolves around maintaining your aura. So when your aura is active, you gain 15% control resistance, which is, you could say it's broken, but don't put much weight into that control resistance, because you don't notice that at all. And then 25% damage absorption while not blocking. And then your attacks heal you for an amount equal to 2% of your max health. And we'll get into that a little bit later. I just wanted to touch on what the aura was originally. And then with that aura, basically the way there's a few ways that you can kind of activate it. So basically any kind of power, so you've got like Atom Splitter, you got Thermonuclear, even like Neutron Bomb. Each one adds a nuclear pressure stack. So once you have 3 stacks or gain 6 molecular charges, your aura will activate. And then basically for DPS, they'll take more damage. But essentially as a tank roll, basically you'll get healing based on 40% of your max dominance. So what that means is, like, say, I guess I should also touch on it as well. Basically there are powers like Proton Remedy and where's Neutrino? And Neutrino Blast. So basically activates your aura if you have at least 1 nuclear pressure stack or at least 2 charges when used. And then obviously the Neutrino Blast is your group breakout, and Proton Remedy is your self-heal. It's usable while controlled. So basically think of that as like an aura shortcut. So if I wanted to take like the long way to the combo, I could just keep doing, that's 1. This is going to be 2. And 3, and my aura is active. So obviously you saw how long that takes to activate. That's not going to be super realistic in content if you're trying to tank. If you go into a big set of ads, you got to do 3 full combos just to get your aura active and get that damage absorption and that healing back from it. So what you do then is basically use that aura shortcut, which is going to be either Proton or Neutrino. So if I do just 1 combo, then my aura is active. So basically, you don't even have to do the full 3 times. You just clip it on the 3rd one. But you saw obviously how quickly that was compared to doing it the full rotation. So that's the way you want to start every single fight. You got a choice. You can always build up your aura before the fight starts and do that. That's what Atomic tanks used to do in the day. Now it doesn't matter as much because you have a shield open if you're really worried about it. But usually you want to just jump into the ads, get started, and then use Proton, and then boom, you're in the aura, and then basically you're just continuing to combo, which basically is going to keep your aura refreshed. That's essentially what the combo system does. Not only do you get your heals from it, so when you get the 2% of your max health when the aura is active and you do an attack, and then you get 40% of your max dominance heal each time you combo. So basically every time you combo, if you have the aura active, you'll get 2% of your max health healing and 40% of your max dom, which I'll show an example of and what that kind of looks like. So in terms of the gear and spec, it doesn't really change much towards other tanking. So you still have absorption adapter on your weapon. Your head mod's always going to be supercharged mass density. You could use dash attack as well. I'll get to that in the loadout section, and tell you why you're in mass density. But same thing, you just run a supercharged mod on your head. The neck mod is going to be Fortified Assault because the aura now rolls around not blocking, which was a nice change because atomic tanking before, since Fortified Assault didn't exist, it was only Fortified Blocking. Atomic tanks are slightly squishy because obviously they couldn't block because they're comboing, but now Fortified Assault helps out Atomic a lot more than other tanks. Accelerated Density on your back mod. Chest mod is going to be Hardy. Leg mod, there's going to be no leg that matters because there's no restorative mod that affects any tank powers, so don't worry about that. On your trinket, basically the standard same thing. You're always going to want your breakout trinket as atomic. You're always going to want chronomatic emitters. In terms of a health trinket, you could use that. You don't have to. That's basically your personal preference. Personal dampening fields are nice. At the undercurrent level, they're about 31k, almost 32k absorption. So once again, that's a personal preference, but it's another personal shield. In terms of hand mod, doesn't really matter. Max damage, because restorative shielding is so minimal, it doesn't scale at all. Foot mod is always going to be Tumbling Master, just makes it a lot easier. In terms of artifacts, really it's pretty much the standard artifact. You don't necessarily have to run. You're always going to obviously going to want the manacles. You're always going to want the digital refractor. The third one is basically your choice. Since you're not always using mass density, it's not so much you're farming supercharge. Like say we're using dash attack, obviously you'd want Gemini then because you're always proccing for the group. But the nice thing about Gemini is it still has 3% Dom and 3% Resto. So really there's not too many artifacts you could run in that case to supplement those stats. If you're precision DPS, you can run the cog because the cog's 5% health and then 3% Dom. I don't have the cog level because I'm not a prec DPS, so that would be another viable alternative. But in terms of just having the stats with the Gemini, that's going to be just as good for atomic tanking as any other artifact. So really it's just those standard 3 artifacts for tanking at the moment until a new one comes out. But you certainly wouldn't need the Soul Cloak or anything like that, not like full on ice and using dash attack. So in terms of the spec, so like I said before, with that atomic aura, basically, let's go back up here. So the atomic aura, 2% of your max health, and then if we go back to the combos, 40% of your max dominance. It kind of gives you an idea of what the spec is going to be. So obviously it's going to be a hybrid, just like any other tank. The critical heals, the only heals that these will affect are going to be Proton Remedy. So you can take those out. You can max those if you'd like. So you get the crits. It's not a necessity because, like I said, it's only Proton Remedy on your soda, but it's going to be only Proton Remedy that's going to affect. So yes, you'd use it every 12 seconds. Essentially, it's up to you. But it's not going to be as critical. Basically, I put 5% in restoration just to give me the 1%. You don't have, once again, you don't have to do that, but it still is another 1% resto, which is going to lend towards helping Proton Remedy a little bit. The base heals is not going to be that much of an increase. As well, it's going to slightly help your shields, but not by much. Basically, atomic is going to revolve around maxing your dominance because that's for your combo healing, and then maxing out your health, which is going to help your aura heals. So that's what I want to do. And same thing, the damage, you already have base damage absorption with the aura, so you want to keep that health pool up as well. So atomic is always going to be max dom, and then put the rest in the health after some other options as well. So that's essentially what you're looking at. In terms of iconic powers, you're going to take Hard Light Shield, obviously. Amazon Deflection is going to be your personal choice as well. The only other power you could take as well is Mesmerizing Lasso. Because, like I said, with that artifact, Digital Refractor, if you're doing, say, like in Crowny or something, or Throny, when you're doing 2 tanks, if you want to proc that Digital Refractor health buff, you're going to need that because if you the pull on it, which is Particle Beam, that's not a pull. That's just, it's your single taunt, but it's not a pull, so it's not going to proc the artifact. Just look at Ice and Frost Snipe. So if you want to proc the artifact, you're going to need to run Mesmerizing Lasso for those instances for a single target. For super speed, all I do is I take the movement mode. I have the Spec Dash Attack. I don't use it as atomic. You could use it. You certainly could. You could spam that instead. I run Mass Density, and I'll tell you why in just in a sec. And then basically you take these resistance as well. Don't take the recoveries because that power doesn't scale at all. So touching on the atomic loadout, the loadout that I run, or the main loadout I run, there's going to be a couple variations, which I'll get to, but the main rotation is going to be atomic organization, which is your basically initial pull, thermonuclear explosion, or thermochemical explosion, sorry. That's going to be your main combo. Hard light shield, proton remedy, which is going to be your aura shortcut, as well as self-heal. Density, which is another your self shield. So the regular 18 seconds, where hard light shield's 30, and then mass density. So you could run dash attack if you're super speed, or perfect poise if you're acrobat. Don't run dust off if you're flight or skimming. That's just horrible. But if you're super speed, you do have the option on dash attack. It's completely up to you. I find it more interferes than anything, because like you could always say you get knocked out of your combos. You could just hit dash attack. That gives you a second to recover. You could certainly do that. That's completely viable. I personally like having mass density. Even though it's a 60-second cooldown, mass density is the strongest shield in the entire game, bar none. So mass density is stronger than Electric's group transducer. The only advantage of group transducer is that it's 30 seconds as opposed to 60. But mass density, like I said, it's a detaunt for the group, as well as the control resistance, which don't put much weight in that because it doesn't really work. But basically, it detaunts the entire group and gives you the strongest shield that there is, group shield. So that's why I prefer running mass density, just for those moments. If I felt that I needed dash attack to survive, or another shield because, I say I was doing a raid that has a lot of CC and I couldn't keep up a combo, yes, you could use dash attack then, but I'd rather have mass density in my back pocket just in case something happens. The healers goes down, someone needs a res, or you're going to take some massive damage, or if there's like, for example, like a good example of this would have been like Hive Elite, when you're running the rocks or Terra. An atomic tank could pop mass density and you have no problem surviving all the volcano damage and everything else dropping those rocks, because mass density is going to completely tank that entire dot from the volcano and from the gas. So I'd rather have it in those instances just as like a basically my ultimate move or whatever, just having it in my back pocket. But if you feel that you're not comfortable or you need a shield more often, you could certainly run dash attack, or you could certainly run Amazon deflection instead of it. If you didn't run a supercharge at all, you do have those options to you. The only other variation, the reason why breaking out is incredibly important to Atomic, but with Neutrino Blast being 18 seconds, you can't run this by itself, because 18 seconds is way too long. So say you're doing your combo, and you'll see it in my raid footage as well. You get interrupted right when you're about to hit the shortcut. The shortcut doesn't work. You hit it, but the combo chain didn't work, so your aura doesn't activate. So then you got to wait 18 seconds to be able to shortcut your aura again, and unless you can get 3 straight combos off, 3 combo chains off. So it's just, I personally don't like running that risk. Proton Remedy is a great self-heal. It's also 6 seconds less of a cooldown. And the group breakout, it's nice to have just in case you need it, but it's not a power that you consistently need like you would Proton Remedy. When supercharges weren't a thing, most atomic tanks didn't run a supercharge and just ran like Neutrino Blast and Proton. But it's just not as viable to run Proton as it was, Neutrino Blast as it once was previously. So that's why I said it's always important to run the breakout trinket. But if you feel like you're really having an issue, then you can certainly swap it out for, like, say, Hard Light Shield or something. But even then, since density is the weakest shield in the game for tanking, besides like Reflect and Shatter, which don't count, you always want some kind of. But you can't rely on density. You need something as a backup for Hard Light Shield. But that's why I don't run a Neutrino Blast. The only other variation, you don't always need Hard Light Shield. If it's leader content, you may prefer it, but say for just regular raids, you're just messing around, you don't necessarily need it. There are also going to be instances where you're constantly getting interrupted, like say the Crowny, or even Crown Rag, or basically the in-between rooms where you get pushed back from the current. You're never going to be able to consistently get thermochemical off. So if you have to wait, almost 3 seconds to be able to use it again, you're going to need a second combo up, or even Throny if you're tanking the ads. You can do it with just thermochemical, but Atom Splitter and its pull makes it much easier. Now, the only issue It may not show it here as well because they're sparring targets, but when you get into an actual raid, the reason why I don't run both is you're going to constantly see, yeah, it's not going to work on, well, you saw the immunity there, but basically, if you're running both combos, the ads are going to become, they're going to become immune and resist much quicker than they would if you're running them separately. So you could run thermochemical all day and just keep the juggle up consistently. They're almost never going to resist, almost never going to break out. You're just going to keep basically juggling them with thermochemical. But the minute you rotate in Atom Splitter that stuns them, basically each combo of Atom Splitter is also a pull. So you can see the resist, they're going to immune, they're going to break out, and then while you're trying to combo, all the ads are going to attack you. You're going to take massive spike damage, get interrupted in your aura could drop. Like, it just becomes a big mess. So really, if the situation calls for it, then you can run Atom Splitter. You can't run Atom Splitter just by itself because if I go back and I can show you here, Atom Splitter is 3.75 seconds and thermochemical is 2.75. So with that, as I said before, being 2.75, you can pretty much do the entire combo and just keep it going. Where if I try to do that with Atom Splitter, basically I'm stuck for like almost 2 seconds there of not being able to do anything. So that's not like, because even if I did Atom Splitter and then did the pull, which I wouldn't need to because they're already pulled, I still have a moment of not being able to do anything. So that's why you can't run Atom Splitter just by itself. You would need 2 combos then, but like I said, 2 combos running 2 combos is going to hurt you more than help you in most cases, unless you have to have some ad management, like say throw any ads that are always going to be flying away. You're constantly going to get interrupted. That's basically when you would use Atom Splitter as well. Other than that, you just need the 1 combo and thermochemical. So in terms of rotation, you're going to see it basically in the video, but it comes down to so getting thermochemical, get the shortcut going. They're going to be juggled. You pull them. So basically, every time you do end thermochemical, pull with the pull. So pull those ads back, keep juggling, pull those ads back, because thermochemical CC is going to knock them or push them back basically. So basically you're just using the pull to pull them back after being knocked back, and that's all you're doing. So that's essentially the rotation. And then if you can always refresh your healing each time, if you get into a really big moment, you could pop your shield. But that's essentially what it comes down to. If you're going to keep the juggle up with thermochemical, you just use atomic organization, which is just the pull, teleport pull after that. So basically you're just keeping your combo up, pull, combo, pull. If something happens in your aura drops, shortcut pull. It's the same thing. It's more, you'll see when you get to tanking that you're gonna have to make sure that you can break out properly, have your breakout trinket, because there's gonna be plenty of times that you get stunned quite easily out of a combo, which can be really frustrating, and your aura drops and you need your shields active. But it all comes down to learning the combos and just getting used to the raid situation and what's in front of you. Okay, so we're back in Doom Metropolis, which is my favorite place to take damage and show that off. So with Atomic, basically it's got the 2 self-heal mechanics like I mentioned. So basically we've got the aura, so 2% of your max health when you're doing attacks with the aura active. And then the other is in your actual combos, which is 40% of your max dominance. So with that tank spec that I showed you just previously, so with hybrid, just 10 each in the critical healing chances, 5% in 5 in resto just to get the 1%, all dom, the rest in health. That gives me base stats of 101,580 health, 11,756 resto, and 18,178 dom. So basically what that means is by having the max health and dom, I can already tell what my combo heals are going to be, because it's not based on restoration whatsoever. Proton Remedy is based on its healing is based on restoration, but and some other factors as well. But essentially, it's going to be based on your healing. Where the combo heals and the aura heals are strictly based on health and dom, which will change in content, but you can calculate exactly what they're going to be. So at 40% of 18,178 in my dom, my combo heals are always going to be 7,271. So each time I do a combo in the aura, or even in general, you're going to see 7,271 combo heals. Now when the aura is active, you're going to be seeing 2% of your max health, and 2% of 101,580 is 2,031. So that means when I'm in the aura, each time I do a combo, I'm going to be receiving a heal of basically a total heal of 9,302. So basically 9,300 health every time I do a combo in Atomic is basically my self heal. Okay, so I'll show the example here. I'm going to start in density just so that I get my aura up without using the shortcuts. So there's the 2031 and the 7271. So now we can start mixing in Proton Remedy as well. And this is like, an 8 to 10k dot that I'm constantly taking here off this cloud. But essentially you get the idea there. So showing the damage absorption, the difference, showing that the aura heals, because you can calculate, exactly what healing you're going to get, which is almost 10, at these stats that I have, is almost 10k every combo, which I'm doing a combo, was basically what, 1, 2, I'm almost doing a combo every second. Yes, you're going to get the odd interruptions, but basically you can basically within 2 seconds you can get 10k heals just from yourself.
lost, only murmur. Staying for the summer, staying for the summer. And while 6 feet under, and I got that number, call her, keep falling, falling like carousel, known to raise hell like I'm Tyrion and chainmail. Give me exhale, see the jaw drop, face mount like a bass head, Libra scale, balance both sides, and she do it well, so well, so well, yeah. Raymond, ducking from the sun, doing okay then. All these feelings bottled inside like a house dog, bounty on the outlaw, she'll get out the house, more playing off the foul ball. You can stick around, girl, bring fire from the world. I'm trying, I'm lost, only murmurs. Find time, yeah, find time. Unsure, I'm staying for the summer. Bring fire from her world. I'm trying, I'm lost, only murmurs. Find time if she's unsure. Find time, staying for the summer. Quiet, lonely, nobody told me. Drifting aside, yeah, running away. Soon as you got those new nights, soon as you got those new nights. Busy cutting the checks, I'm used to cutting the ties. Okay, pull up your pants, okay. Remember them rolling eyes, now they are fans, okay. Hanging from grapevines, she want the juice now. She want it all right, get it from you now. Get it from you now. Little girl, drifting aside, drifting aside. Call her, keep falling, falling like carousel. On the same road, on the same, on the same road. I'm on the same road, on the same. Bring fire from her world. I'm trying, I'm lost, only murmur. Find time if she's unsure. Find time, staying for the summer. Yeah, yeah.
want this forever. Just you in the grotto with nothing but your nights on. Keep the fucking lights on. Same again tomorrow. We don't need no bottle. Purple color lip gloss. Room at the Saguaro. Ain't nowhere I would rather be. Right between your holidays. Coffee on the Flintstone. Jewelry on the Ottoman. Baby, let me in. For I get way too adamant about it. Love the way you shiver. Dig into my shoulder blades. Feel it when you quiver. Higher level elevate. You could be the renegade. Body to a Clyde. Harrison and Juliet. Legends never die. The TV hasn't worked in ages. Probably got a shorty cable. Way too busy fucking on the sofa or the kitchen table. Is my vision hazy? You look like you're someone famous. Cause you're the next Drew Barry. And I want more. And all these other girls keep wondering what I fuck with you for. Cause you're the next Drew Barry. Yeah. And I want more. And all these other girls keep wondering what I fuck with you for. Yeah. Cause you're the next Drew Barry. Cause you're the next Drew Barry. Cause you're the next Drew Barry. Barry, 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 Barry. Cause you're the next Drew Barry. Sweeping through the desert, hot Americana rain, falling wearing nothing but my Lauryn Hill shirt. It's kinda baggy on you, baby, but it worked. The AC hasn't worked in ages. I could probably read the label. Way too busy fucking on the counter or the coffee table. Am I hallucinating? Why do you look hella famous? Cause you're the next Drew Barry. And I want more. And all these other girls keep wondering what I fuck with you for. Cause you're the next Drew Barry. Yeah. And I want more. And all these other girls keep wondering what I fuck with you for. Yeah. Cause you're the next Drew Barry. Cause you're the next Drew Barry. Cause you're the next Drew Barry. Barry, 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 Barry. Cause you're the next Drew Barry. Every single moment for you great. Fly away to Cairo or LA. Girl, I want it now, don't wanna waste time, waste time. I wanna make, yeah, every single moment for you great, yeah. Fly away to Cairo or LA. Girl, I want it now, don't wanna waste time.
A long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, a young gentleman by the name of San Polo.
No, my name is Sando. Yeah.
Make some noise for this plant.
trying something new is?
Well, just mixing stuff up. I brought my guitar with me.
Okay.
I'm gonna play some guitar as well.
Ooh.
Electronic vibes, trap music with guitar playing, guitar solos. Why not? You know, just mixing it all up. Go, 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 go.
Mixing this one's fun.
Yeah.
I hold on to. You're the only thing I know, and I don't wanna let this go. Close to you, I feel like coming home. Can't wait till we're alone. We were built to last, we were built like that. Baby, take my hand, dive in this romance. We could burn and crash, we could take a chance. Only nothing matters, like it's our last dance. Like it's our last wide open, falling in and out of focus, pressure flowing like a river in my head. Crying you in with me and it's flooding the whole city while my soul's burning like a cigarette. You're the only thing I know, and I don't wanna let this go. Close to you, I feel like coming home. Can't wait till we're alone. We were built to last, we were built like that. Baby, take my hand, dive in this romance. We could burn and crash, we could take a chance. Only nothing matters, like it's our
booth, yeah, I'm dropping the heat. You can't fuck with the street, cause I'm dope on the beat. And every time I'm in the booth, yeah, I'm dropping the heat. You can't fuck with the street, cause I'm dope on the beat. And every time I'm in the booth, yeah, I'm dropping the heat. You can't fuck with the street, cause I'm dope on the beat. And every time I'm in the booth, yeah, I'm dropping the heat. You can't fuck with the street, cause I'm dope on the beat. And every time I'm in the booth, yeah, I'm dropping the heat. You can't fuck with the street, cause I'm dope on the beat. And every time I'm in the booth, yeah, I'm dropping the heat. You can't fuck with the street, cause I'm dope on the beat. And every time I'm in the booth, yeah, I'm dropping the heat. You can't fuck with the street, cause I'm dope on the beat. And every time I'm in the booth, yeah, I'm dropping the heat.
thinking, let's roll it up in this repetition. But in these sheets it still feels so damn good. Shit.
Visions of sitting alone in my room. Flowers arise, all of them look just like you. All I could look at is you, yeah. Look at me, how you look into your phone. Even when you're here, I still feel alone. Always online, we still lost our connection. Late night, 11:11. I wish I wasn't
cold and alone, no comfort inside. Hoping and praying for someone who cares. Visions up, visions up, visions up. I have visions up, I have visions up, I have visions, I have visions up, visions up, visions up. I have visions up, I have.
I need someone who's there. I need someone who love me like J Dilla loved the snares. Need someone who love me like these California kids loving their festivals and fairs. Yeah, it's not fair, and that's why I'm drinking. Need you on my shit, without you I'm sinking. Visions of you, I'm envisioning freedom. Without you, I'm locked with these demons. In my head, I'm
cold and alone, no comfort inside. Hoping and praying for someone who cares. Visions up, visions up, visions up. I have visions up, I have visions up, I have visions, I have visions up, visions up, visions up. I have visions up, I have.
so good when we fell apart. Used to be my light, then I made it dark. I don't know how it happened. I knew I should've reacted like I didn't give a fuck, but I didn't allocate what happened. I'm sitting here dreaming, thinking of things that I believe in, but nothing seems to come to mind except you at the Four Seasons where we used to go. Every day with you I treated like the Super Bowl. My mom telling me that I gotta let it go.